say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, Patriots, and welcome to another edition of the Douglas Ducote Show. Yet another place you could be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. I thank you very, very much. We will start tonight with some breaking news. I'm sure you've already heard it by now. If you haven't, former FBI Director James Comey has officially been indicted by a grand jury. This is something that I've been calling for many years now. Those of you that have been watching this show through the years, you know that I have reported on James Comey's criminal activity, the way he was weaponizing the FBI, of course, the way the DOJ was doing it as well, all to get Trump and his supporters in MAGA. It was a big mess. I reported on all the testimony that was taking place in Congress. And then the things James Comey was saying afterwards when he was writing books, for instance, and when he was going on podcasts. And the conclusion that we all came to by his own words was that during his testimony, when it came to Crossfire Hurricane, the Russia collusion hoax, he lied. And that's what's hanging him out to dry tonight. So let's talk a little bit about that. He was indicted about 2 hours ago for false statement and obstruction of justice. As reported in July, Comey was under criminal investigation by the FBI. The probe into Comey centered on whether he lied to Congress during his September 30th, 2020 testimony about the handling of the original Trump-Russia probe at the FBI, known inside the bureau as Crossfire Hurricane. Also, former CIA Director John Burnham is under criminal investigation at the moment with his ties to the Russia hoax, and hopefully he'll be indicted maybe later this evening or tomorrow or before next week's up. The case is being handled by the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Eastern District of Virginia. As we know, former Special Counsel Robert Mueller was appointed to take over the FBI's original Crossfire Hurricane investigation. After nearly 2 years, Mueller's investigation, which concluded in March of 2019, yielded no evidence of criminal conspiracy or coordination between the Trump campaign and Russia officials during the 2016 presidential election. Shortly after, John Durham was appointed as special counsel to investigate the origins of the Crossfire Hurricane probe. Durham found that the FBI failed to act on a clear warning sign that the FBI was the target of a Clinton-led effort to manipulate or influence the law enforcement process for political purposes ahead of the 2016 presidential election. As in, Clinton paid for the Steele dossier, the lies that started this whole thing. Hillary Clinton paid for that. The smear campaign. The facts reflect a rather startling failure to adequately consider and incorporate the Clinton plan intelligence into the FBI's investigation decision making in the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, according to Durham's report. Indeed, had the FBI opened the Crossfire Hurricane investigation as an assessment and in turn gathered and analyzed data in concert with the information from the Clinton plan intelligence, it is likely that the information received would have been examined and at a minimum with a more critical eye, the report continued. Durham in his report said the FBI failed to act on what should have been, when combined with other facts, a clear warning sign that the FBI might then be the target of an effort to manipulate or influence the law enforcement process for political purposes during the 2016 presidential election. Now, the two federal charges are making a false statement to Congress, which I told you right here on this show. The guy lied. And then I explained to you why, because he came back and talked about just the opposite of what he told Congress. An obstruction of a criminal proceeding. These charges stem from his September 30th, 2020 Senate Judiciary Committee testimony, in which prosecutors said that he falsely denied authorizing leaks related to the FBI's investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 election. That was his testimony. Prosecutors said that in that testimony, Comey denied that he authorized anyone to serve as an anonymous source to the media about the Russian investigation or disclose certain information, when in fact the indictment states he had done so and approved it. Basically, he misled Congress about whether he approved the leaks of sensitive or possibly classified information related to the investigation into the 2016 Russian interference. The obstruction charge is tied to the same underlying conduct, that by giving false testimony and possibly acting to impede further investigation or accountability, which is exactly what he was doing, Comey obstructed the course of the criminal proceedings leading up to and during the Russia hoax. Comey was scrutinized for his handling of the documents and memos and the leaks. An Inspector General IG report found that Comey's retention and handling of certain memos violated the Department of Justice and FBI policies. So, how strong is this case? Well, James Comey's own words after testifying is going to hang him. June 17, shortly after being fired by President Trump, Comey changed his story and testified to Congress that he had indeed authorized a friend, Daniel Richman, a Columbian law professor, Columbia, to share content of a memo he had written about a meeting with Trump. The memo detailed Trump allegedly saying, "I hope you can let this go," referring to the Michael Flynn investigation. Comey said he leaked this to prompt the appointment of a special counsel, which ultimately became Robert Mueller. His quote, James Comey, quote, "I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons. But I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel." Comey's Senate testimony on June 8th, 2017. In June 2019, the Department of Justice Special General released a report saying Comey violated FBI policies by retaining and leaking the memos. He failed to live up to his responsibility as the FBI director. In summary, Comey admitted leaking contents of this memo to the press via a friend for what he said was a legitimate public interest purpose, but he denied leaking classified information. This after first testifying under oath that he never leaked or authorized anyone to leak any material related to the Crossfire Hurricane. So he perjured himself, he lied to cover his ass, and then he got caught. And how he thought he could get away with this, and just like all the rest of them that came after him, and it ain't just him. Hey, James Comey was a Republican, all right? And when he was FBI director, I was out here telling you, Trump, why aren't you firing this guy? He's not out for your best interests. Then he put other people, Jeff Sessions, in a position over at DOJ. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Trump, what are you doing? Jeff Sessions was a babbling idiot. He was a Republican that just didn't know what the hell he was doing. And then came Bill Barr, Trump put in charge of the FBI. And I reported right here on this show, he was friends with the guy that was investigating Trump. And they went and there was pictures of them at Little League baseball games and barbecues at each other's family's house and shit. So it just kept getting pushed deeper out of the way by Republicans that were put in charge of the DOJ and the FBI under Trump. And of course, then the Biden-Harris administration comes along and they're not going to dig all this shit up. Hell, Comey helped smear Donald Trump, even though they all know it was all a fucking lie. We all know that for a fact. We've known that since the Mueller investigation. There was no collusion with Russia when it comes to involving Donald J. Trump. That's a fact. It cannot be denied, although it's being denied by the left and liberals and the Democrats up in Washington, D.C. They don't care about facts. All they care about is get Trump, get Trump, get Trump. And it didn't work. Okay? Everything they tried, everything they threw at the wall, hoping that something would stick, nothing stuck. And of course, we're watching, as I predicted, and I told you over and over and over again, don't worry about these lawsuits that are happening against Donald Trump. Don't worry about the fact that these liberal judges that are actually activists have found him guilty. And they, the prosecutors went jury shopping and judge shopping to find an area where they could prosecute Trump, that they would get a liberal and an anti-Trump jury and a judge that hated Trump. And that's what they pulled off, which should be illegal. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. But Republicans do it as well, okay? When they're going to prosecute somebody on the Democrat side, they go look and they go judge and jury shopping. I mean, that's just how the government does shit, all right? I mean, think about how corrupt that is. Imagine that happening to you. Okay? Imagine, I don't know, you're a black person and you've been accused of something. Been accused of something dealing with, I don't know, maybe hurting a white person. So they on purpose look for a judge and a jury in an all-white area. Maybe an area that's anti-black. And then they get it, and then of course, boom, no matter what the evidence is, even if the evidence showed that you were not guilty, they're going to find you guilty. And there's plenty of cases of that. I mean, there are actual attorneys that do pro bono, that go out, innocent projects, that are trying to free some of these black people out of jails that have been wrongfully convicted because of this kind of shit. Well, our federal government does it all the time. We watched it happen under Republican presidents. We watched it happen under Democrat presidents. That's exactly what they did. They went looking for judges and a jury in an area to hold these cases that would be anti-Donald Trump, anti-MAGA, anti-Republican. And then we watched all the evidence come out that they had. And I was reporting on it. I was watching it. I was listening to it. I was reading the testimony. And I was coming back here and I'm telling you, they're not going to find him guilty. They can't. The evidence isn't there. And I told you this based on my own personal experience working in law enforcement for many, many years. Okay? It's a pretty simple process. If there's no evidence, you can't convict. And lo and behold, it didn't matter. Bam! Guilty. And so I said, don't worry about it. Okay? This was judge shopping. We knew this was going to happen. It happened. And this will be overturned on appeal. Of course, the liberals and Democrats said, I'm losing my mind. There's no way in hell. And we have watched now every one of these cases getting overturned on appeal. Some of them are going to end up at the Supreme Court. Some of them have already ended up at the Supreme Court. And they've been overturned. You know, these judges were doing things that were illegal, just like the Department of Justice was and the FBI under the Biden-Harris administration. And the Democrats up in Washington, D.C. They were hell-bent on stopping Donald Trump, no matter if it meant lying, no matter if it meant making up shit. They don't care. And this is a party that I used to belong to. I was a proud Democrat for so many years until I woke up and realized they've weaponized this system that should, Lady Justice wears a blindfold for a reason. And you're going to tell me every time we have Democrats in charge, they're just going to convert this system the way it fits their narrative and their needs and go against clear-cut evidence? And that was just one of the many things that made me change. I watched the party get hijacked by far-left liberal ideology like it is right now. And you need to look no further than what's happening with the Democrat leadership, the Jasmine Crockett's and the AOC's and the Alejandro Omars and the Rashida Tlaib's. It's nuts, my friends. We've got people that are the up-and-coming heroes of the Democrat Party that are batshit crazy. There's no other way of putting it. They're deranged. There are Democrats up in Congress that are good people that don't act this way. But are they calling out their cohorts that are saying and doing this stupid shit that's destroying their party? For the most part, no. Which is sad. Because we're watching, history is where we're watching a party, a political party, self-implode. Everything they ran on up to this previous election, they lost on. Majorly lost on. Lost 1,600 Pennsylvania, the House, the Senate. And one would think that would be the wake-up call. We're going down the wrong path. The American people overwhelmingly rejected what we were doing for what the Republicans want to do. And the American people weren't stupid. They were watching what the Biden-Harris administration was doing to Republicans and conservatives and MAGA and Donald Trump. Then the violence started happening, and Republicans and conservatives and Trump people are being, and Trump himself, they're being shot at, they're being attacked. 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump. And the American people went, we're tired of this two-tier justice system. We're tired of seeing people get prosecuted for trespassing on J6. Now, the people that committed violent crimes and attacked police officers, fuck them, okay? That was only a handful of people. All the rest of them, the Biden-Harris administration, their Justice Department and their FBI rounded up, put in jail and prison, or for trespassing. But yet, during the summer of love for George Floyd, we watched day in and day out BLM and Antifa loot stores, burn down buildings, set police cars on fire. Hell, they burnt down a police station. They burnt down a post office. It was nuts. They went absolutely crazy. And the Democrats didn't do shit about it. And nobody was held accountable for this. So we watched this two-tier justice system playing out in full color for us all to see. There's no hiding it. Unless you're complete and utterly ignorant from birth, or you've had a brain defect happen to you, you were able to see that this was wrong, what they were doing. And then the people just said, we're tired of this shit. So, the Democrats lose. One would think they'd go back to the drawing board and go, okay, we're wrong about all this shit. Obviously, how are we going to move forward? And instead of coming up with a plan that's better than the Republican plan, which was supporting law enforcement, getting rid of crime in Democrat-run cities, securing our border, bringing oil and gas independence back into America so we're no longer dependent on foreign oil, all these things. Instead of coming up with a plan that's better than what the Republicans had, they doubled down on stupid. The same things that caused them to lose, they doubled and tripled down on. And they're doing it right now as I speak. They're not letting up. Trump, Vance, anyone that associates with MAGA, conservatives, Republicans, we're all Nazis. We're like Hitler wannabes. We're racist. We're bigots. We're fascist. They just keep bam, 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 slamming the same shit that caused them to lose. That's a mental problem. I mean, seriously. Anyone, and I don't care what the situation, take politics out of it. Doesn't matter. Pick anything out there in life that you do. If what you're doing causes you to lose drastically, then you have to change your plan and go with something that's going to win. But not these son of a bitches up in Washington. Oh, hell no. Hell no. Let's keep doing the exact same thing, except let's make it our voices heard louder. Let's incite violence. Let's start saying things that are going to get Donald Trump shot at. Republicans and conservatives shot at, killed. Because if we keep saying this, and we keep saying they're a threat to democracy, they're fascists, they're Nazis, they're like Hitler, they're racist, they're bigots, if we keep making up this shit, we keep spewing these lies, we keep pumping it out there and pumping it out there, somebody out there listening to us is going to be a little mentally off. And they're going to go, I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to stop it. And that's exactly what we're watching happen. After Donald Trump was 2 assassination attempts on his life, Charlie Kirk shot and killed. Did you see Republicans and conservatives take to the streets and loot anything, burn down any buildings, set police cars on fire? Any of that shit that we've been watching the left and the Democrats do? No. We had prayer vigils, people going back to church, people praying that hadn't prayed in a long, long time. The other side is violent. They're sick. Now, has it always been that way? No. There's been some right-wing extremists through the years that have done some horrible things and killed people. But that's a very small fraction compared to what we've been watching happen over the past 8 years. Hell, social media and the history books haven't even caught up with it yet. I mean, if you go to ChatGPT or you go just Google it, you're going to find that there's more right-wing extremist violence in America than there are left-wing, which is not the case anymore. That's not true. We know this from factual information from the Department of Justice and the FBI under the Biden-Harris administration, for crying out loud. We know that that's shifted, that's changed. And now we have the left committing these horrible acts of violence. Hell, Ilhan Omar said that the biggest threat to America is white men. Based on shit that the KKK was doing back in the 60s, 50s, which was founded, oh, by the way, by the Democrat Party. The KKK is nothing today. They still exist. They're not killing black people. They're not shooting black people down the streets. Black people are doing that to themselves. Black on black crime is an epidemic in America. White people aren't lynching black people. They're not setting their churches on fire and burning crosses in their yards. Has there been a few incidents of shit happen? Yeah, few and far and here between. But if you listen to Ilhan Omar tell it to you, you would think that we're back in the 50s and 60s when it comes to racial violence. It's a lie. It's a lie. The only people that are going to spew that nonsense are the Democrats up in Washington, D.C., in the leadership of the Democrat Party. That's the only people that tell you that shit. And it's not true. That's inciting violence. That's why I keep saying there comes a point when, yes, there's freedom of speech, but it only goes so far. And when people are being injured and physically killed because of what you're telling people, and somebody's acting on what you said, then you need to be held accountable for that. You know, look at Jimmy Kimmel. This guy got up there and lied on purpose to his liberal base, because that's who watches him, liberals and Democrats. Republicans don't tune into that stupid son of a bitch. And he said that the shooter, Charlie Kirk, was a right-winger and a right-wing extremist and a Trump supporter. He lied. He knew he lied to stir up his people. And still hasn't apologized for it. Within 3 days of Charlie Kirk's death, it was proven that the only thing related to this guy that was right-wing was his parents, who were Republicans, who were Trump supporters. His dad was a former law enforcement officer. And his whole family was coming out saying he's been radicalized. We've been watching this for 2 years. He's living with a transsexual man wanting to become a woman, a biological man that dresses up as a woman, that hates Donald Trump. Because, drag queens can't go and do story hour anymore in elementary schools and at the library. Donald Trump and Republican conservatives don't give a shit what you do as long as it's consensual and it's with adults behind closed doors. What we care about is you pushing it on our kids. We care about you putting books in our schools for elementary children that are sexually graphic about BDSM and gay sex. That's what the Democrat Party wants to protect. It's become an utter shit show. Watching this party implode on itself, it's hard to watch. I mean, look, I'm sorry. I have a little bit of sympathy for regular Democrats out there that aren't into politics all that much, that are just trying to, work for a living and put food on the table and take care of their children, raise their family. I care about them because they have our values. They just don't realize that the party left them. It's no longer the party of JFK. It's radical idiots running the Democrat Party. And the average Democrat out there doesn't know that because they don't pay attention to politics. And when they do, they just hear their representative saying something that's absolutely false. They don't take the time to look it up or check it because they're just out there working and trying to put food on the table and take care of their family. Thankfully, because of people like myself and others out there on social media that are exposing this and telling you where you can go and you can find the truth and you can get the truth, people are starting to wake up and listen. We actually have Democrat members in states that are House representatives switching parties, becoming independents or becoming Republicans. The Democrat Party right now is in shambles to a degree like it's never been ever in its history. It's a losing party. So, I've said it once, I've said it many, many times. I don't want them to stop this. I want them to keep doubling down on stupid because it's working for the right. More and more Democrats are starting to realize, by paying attention to what's coming out of the mouths of their leaders up in Washington, that they do not align with their morals and values and beliefs. So I don't want them to stop. I want them to keep doing that. And then I want to see our Justice Department and FBI start holding some of these Congress members accountable for inciting violence. Now, I'm going to share something with you that is happening at the moment that's very, very frightening. In the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, the hands of a left-wing radical, a leftist gun club, that's right, you heard me right, a liberal gun club. I know, your brain's not catching that. You're going, those two things don't go together, Doug, guns and liberals. Well, a leftist gun club with ties to political violence posted recruiting flyers at Georgetown University with references to Kirk's death. It said, "Hey, fascists catch, as in what he wrote on the bullets, the assassin. Red flyer from the John Brown Gun Club posted on Georgetown's campuses. The phrase is a nod to the same slogan which was written on the shell casings by Tyler Robertson, who stands accused of murdering Kirk at the Turning Point USA event at Utah Valley University. The only political group that celebrates when Nazis die, the advertisement says. It is adorned with a QR code link to a page that says, "We're building a community that's done with ceremonial resistance and strongly worded letters." If you want to make a real change in your community, let us know below. Now, Turning Point USA spokesman and Charlie Kirk Show executive producer Andrew Colvett flagged the flyers in a social media post yesterday. Shane McNinnis, sophomore at Georgetown University and treasury of the school's College Republicans Club, found the posters in plain sight on the school's activity boards on Wednesday morning. So obviously I read this as an immediate threat, not only for me, but for everybody on campus, he said. Every conservative, everyone who just does not subscribe to the prevailing leftist ideology, this is a direct threat against them. It means that there are students at this campus who want to see conservatives dead than engage with their ideas, rather it be political or having political discourse. Ever since President Trump won the election in January, we've seen an increase in this rhetoric, he continues. And that's all across, on all liberal colleges. But really, I think many conservatives noticed a change after Charlie Kirk's assassination. While much of the school was united in condemning this horrible act of political violence, there have been a fringe element on the left and on social media that have been really defiant of this. They're justifying it. They're happy about it. And that's unacceptable. I am aware of the appalling posters that were displayed on Georgetown's campus today. At the moment like this, Georgetown has to determine what it stands for as an institution, Education Secretary Linda McMahon posted on X Wednesday evening. She added that officials from her department have spoken to Georgetown administrators who have made the decision to remove the flyers. Campus police are investigating the incident and will deploy resources to protect students as necessary. Allowing violent rhetoric to fester on our nation's campuses without consequences is dangerous. It must be condemned by institutional leaders. The Center for Counter Extremists lists the John Brown Gun Club as a far left group. Members of the organization frequently show up armed at left-wing political events under the guise of protecting protesters from right-wing counter-protesters, and the gun club is tied to recent anti-ICE violence. On July 4th, a dozen people attacked the detention center in Aurora, Texas. Criminal complaint filed with the U.S. District Court, Northern District of Texas, alleged that the assailants shot 20 to 30 rounds from an AR-15 rifle before it jammed. Some of the suspects in the case are accused of setting off fireworks and graffitiing ICE vehicles with slogans like "ICE Pig" in order to lure unarmed agents into a parking lot, which there aren't any unarmed agents. And around the same time, more suspects opened fire from nearby tree line, striking a local police officer and injuring him. 11 suspects were arrested and have been charged, facing federal charges, including 3 counts of attempted murder of a federal agent, in addition to 3 counts of discharging a firearm in relation to a crime of violence. One of those suspects is a guy by the name of Benjamin Song. a longtime Antifa agitator who in 2023 was involved in a skirmish with a right-wing group called the New Columbian Movement during a drag event in Fort Worth. So let's take a moment and hear directly from this Georgetown student.
So those flyers were found at the Village A board. So outside of the Storm Hall, there are various poster boards for different clubs, paste flyers with different announcements for events throughout the weeks. And those posters were there just with all of the other ones, and I found those this morning. It's just appalling and so shocking. I mean, those big words, "Hey, fascist, catch." I immediately thought of Charlie Kirk's assassination because those were the same words that the deranged killer wrote on the bullet that killed Charlie Kirk. And so obviously I read this immediately as a threat, not only for me, but for everyone on this campus, every conservative, everyone who just does not subscribe to the prevailing leftist orthodoxy. This is a direct threat against them. It means that there are students at this campus who would want to see conservatives dead rather than engaging with their ideas, rather than facilitating a political discourse. And that is appalling, and that is totally incompatible with what a university should be and with what really our society and civilization should foster. Since President Trump won the election this January, we've seen an increase in this rhetoric. But really, I think many conservatives noticed a change after Kirk's assassination. While much of the school was united in condemning the horrible act of political violence, there have been fringe elements on the left, on social media, that we have seen really defend this, justify this, and that is really unacceptable because we can debate the policy all day long, and conservatives here are absolutely willing to do that, but as soon as it transcends into violence, that is incompatible with the Western civilization, the values of our civilization, and the values of a university that we try to foster. It's not until I saw this poster this morning that I ever felt directly threatened. I mean, this poster is directly calling for the death of conservatives on this campus. It is saying that we like and we support when Nazis die. It is using the same language that was used on the bullet that killed Charlie Kirk. And if you go to the website, the QR code that they link, they're saying that they are done with ceremonial acts of resistance. They need to take it a step further. All of this is incredibly worrisome for people who want to declare themselves publicly conservative on any university. I think the university needs to recognize there is a difference between free speech and actively threatening violence. Every conservative supports free speech. We believe that people should be able to express their ideas, but when you are threatening students for a different viewpoint, the university must get involved and shut that down. I want the university to look into who put these up, and they should be immediately suspended, if not expelled from the university, or we should take police action. Because this is unacceptable in a time where political violence is such on the rise that the university would even tacitly tolerate these posters being put up. I think the biggest lesson that Charlie Kirk taught us was the value of public discourse, the value of debate as being necessary in our society. He would go and sit down across from people who, regardless of their disagreements with him, and he would engage them in genuine conversations about policy issues. And in a time where our country is so polarized and political violence is so on the rise, we need more people like Charlie Kirk and to carry out that mission of engaging with people who disagree with us.
So he's also a prime example of why they wanted Charlie Kirk dead and want our voices stopped, because he's a youth in college that sees the hate coming from the left, and he's black. That's doubling down on we have to shoot Charlie Kirk and kill him, because the liberal left can't handle peaceful conversation and dialogue and debate. They can't agree to disagree. It's either their way or no way. And now it's reached a point where these radical leftists are listening to the members of Congress tell them that everybody in red, anybody that supported Donald Trump, to include Donald Trump himself, conservatives, Republicans, MAGA, we're fascists, we're Nazis, we're Hitler, we're racist, we're bigots. We want to make this all a white race. We want to get rid of black and brown people. They're inciting violence. They're stirring up the minds of these youth, and they're convincing them that they should take matters in their own hands, because they're telling them, Democrat members of Congress are telling them that we are a threat to democracy and we are going to destroy this country, and that they need to rise up. I mean, we've heard it from even the elders. We've heard it from Maxine Waters. We've heard it from Cory Booker. We've heard it from Nancy Pelosi, asking, I don't understand why there's not bloodshed in the street. Guess what, Nancy? There is now. There is now. Everything you Democrats in Washington, D.C., the Jasmine Crockett's, the AOC's, the Alejandro Mars, the Rashida Tlaib's, Cory Booker, Adam Schiff, they're all doing the same thing. They're telling everybody else that doesn't understand or know any better that we're all racist, bigots, Nazis, Hitler, destroying America. And they're believing it. And now they're taking action on it. That's why I say we have to come to a point where freedom of speech, you're no longer protected as a member of Congress, because what you're saying is causing people to go out and take action to eliminate the right. Have you ever heard a Republican member of Congress calling Democrats and liberals Nazis, racist bigots, a threat to democracy, Hitler, fascist? What's wrong with these people? And after 2 assassination attempts on Trump, and now Charlie Kirk's death, one would think they would stop it. No, they're doubling down on it. They won't stop it.
Where it called him Dr. Frankenstein and said his monster shot him through the neck. I mean, obviously this is a person, and looking at this is someone who was a husband and a father, and in the days after his shocking death, that happened as a result of his views, or it happened as a result as he was sharing his views publicly with people, that people found it jarring to hear such criticism of that in the immediate aftermath.
What I find jarring is that there's so many people willing to excuse the most reprehensible things that he said, that they agree with that they're willing to have monuments for him, that they want to create a day to honor him, and that they want to produce resolutions in the House of Congress honoring his life and legacy. It is one thing to care about his life, because obviously so many people loved him, including his children and wife. But I am not going to sit here and be judged for not wanting to honor any legacy this man has left behind. That should be in the dustbin of history, and we should hopefully move on and forget the hate that he spewed every single day.
CNN gave that horrible person a platform to double down. She's obviously never watched a single video from start to finish of Charlie Kirk. Only little bitty snippets that have been put out on social media to frame him as a person that hates black people. She's a sitting member of Congress, lying like all the rest of them up there. You couldn't make this shit up if you tried. This is the same person who says that the biggest threat to our country is white men. That came out of her mouth. Operation Gothic Serpent, over in Somalia, the Black Hawk Down incident. You seen the movie Black Hawk Down? That operation? Well, she's from Somalia. And she referred to the United States military veterans that were involved in that operation as the real terrorists. That's what she thinks of United States military veterans, a sitting member of Congress. It's the most ungrateful person to ever step foot in this country. She was a refugee. America saved her and her family and brought them here. And now she wants to turn America into a shithole and turn it into Somalia. Rashida Tlaib's the same way, supporting Hamas terrorists. Anyhow, in what sounds like a broken record, the Democrat Party hit another historic low in a national poll this week. 30% of voters nationwide questioned in a Quinnipiac University survey said that they favored opinion of the Democrat Party, and 54% said they hold an unfavorable opinion. This is the lowest favorable rating for the Democrat Party since this polling at the university began, asking voters that question in 2008. The survey was the latest poll this year to flash red alerts for the Democrats. The Democrat Party has been in the political wilderness since last year's elections. Not only did the party lose control of the White House and the Senate and fail to win back the House majority, but Republicans made gains among Blacks, Hispanics, and the youth vote. All traditional members of the Democrat Party's base. Since President Trump's return to power in January, an increasingly energized base of Democrats is urging party leaders to take a stronger stand in pushing back against the president's sweeping, controversial second-term agenda. Their anger is directed not only at Republicans, but at Democrats they feel aren't vocal enough in their opposition of Donald Trump. That has fueled a plunge in the Democrat Party's favorable ratings, which have hit historic lows in a slew of surveys this year. We do have a brand problem. Democrat National Committee Chair Ken Martin said, "When you hit rock bottom, there's only one direction to go, and that's up, and that's what we're doing," Martin added. Well, you need to tell that to those up in Congress in the House. They're not listening to you. You're never going to go up with them spewing their hate. There's a silver lining for Democrats is that the Republican brand image isn't much better. Only 38% of respondents in the poll said they have a favorable view of the Republican Party, with 51% holding an unfavorable view. More Americans say that Republicans, rather than Democrats, have a better plans to deal with many of the top issues that face our country. According to a new national poll, 40% of adults nationwide questioned in a Reuters LPSOS survey said Republicans have a better plan to deal with crime compared to 20% who said the same thing about the Democrats' proposal. The GOP had an 18 percentage point edge over the Democrat Party when it comes to plans to deal with immigration, a 12-point edge over the Democrats on dealing with foreign conflicts, and a 10-point advantage on handling the economics of the economy, according to the polls. Republican advantage over the Democrats on the economy came despite the new survey indicating 54% felt the nation's economy is on the wrong track, with only 35% giving President Trump a thumbs up for the job he's doing handling the economy. Trump's approval rating on dealing with the cost of living was even lower, at 28% in the survey, which was conducted September 19th through the 21st. The president's campaign trail promised last year to handle continued inflation aimed at affordable concerns, helped propel him back into the White House, and aided Republicans as they won back the Senate majority and protected their fragile control of the House. The Reuters poll also indicated America's filled the GOP by slight margins, has better plans than the Democrats to deal with gun control, political extremists, and corruption. According to the survey, Democrats top Republicans when it comes to the plan to deal with the economy, healthcare, women's rights, and respect for democracy. Americans have lost faith in the Democrat Party. Even on the Democrats' historical more advantageous issues like gun control. That's the opposite of what usually happens in the opposing party during presidential's first term in office. Veteran Republican pollster Frank Lunsden said. So he pointed to the Reuters survey. And Reuters is not pro-right anything. And in fact, they're full of Trump derangement syndrome. New survey follows polls, national polls, for instance, that Fox News conducted back in July that found that while the Republican Party has lost some ground to the Democrat Party on handling key issues, voters are more likely to think the GOP has a clear plan of dealing with the economies and the country's problems. Survey found by 10-point margin, more voters thought that the Republicans had a clear plan for the U.S. than the Democrats, 43 versus 33%. But majorities felt that neither party had a clear plan. According to the poll, nearly 8 in 10 Republicans were confident their party had a clear plan, compared to just 51% of Democrats. So, you know what I think of polls? They're wrong on a lot of shit. And I don't know who they're getting to answer these polls. It ain't me. It's not Republicans and conservatives. I mean, let's be honest. When our phone rings, we look at it, and if we don't recognize the number, we don't answer it. Somebody out there is answering it. And they don't, either they're very, very wealthy and they don't care what things cost. They just listen to what's coming out of the mouths of Democrats in Washington, D.C. Or, I don't know, they're fucking clueless. They don't pump their own gas. I got to buy gas every week. I'm amazed at the gas prices in the past 8 months. I'm amazed at the secure border. I'm amazed at the support that law enforcement's getting and our military's getting. I'm amazed at the corruption and the crime in these Democrat-led cities. It's being cleaned up. I mean, are there still problems? Do we still have a long way to go? You bet your ass we do. But my God, have you went out and actually bought groceries? What's higher now than what it was 8 months ago? I don't know. Hell, I'm in the store at least twice a week, buying the same shit that I've been, whether it's chicken, hamburger meat, ribs, steaks, eggs, milk, coffee creamer, coffee. I'm not paying anything more. In fact, I'm paying less. So who the hell is paying more? Well, if you live out in California, you're paying a whole lot more. Sure as hell are. But that's not the Republicans' fault. That's the Democrats' fault for what they've done to that state. Same thing up in Washington State or Oregon with these horrible high taxes. That affects everything. It's a trickle-down effect. So if you really think that we're worse off today than we were 8 months ago, I don't know what to tell you, because you're wrong. We're not. Everything's looking great. America's coming back. We're being respected in the world. Finally. Wouldn't know that by listening to the Democrat members of Congress, would you? They're painting this picture that's just not reality. But it is what it is. They continue to double down on stupid. So, in closing tonight, the show, after I sign off here in a few minutes, is going to go on for an additional 21 minutes without me, because I'm going to play something for you that I want you to, hopefully you will hang on and watch. It's going to air directly after I'm finished. It was last night on Hannity's program. Now, there's a lot of things with Fox News that you know that I don't agree with. Sure as hell don't agree with MSNBC and CNN, ABC, CBS. Look, all the mainstream media out there is a bunch of corrupt, horrible shit. Fox sometimes has some great points. Sometimes CNN has some great points. I don't think I've ever seen any great points from MSNBC. And I've got plenty of problems with Sean Hannity. You know, I've talked about it right here on this show. But what I watched last night for 21 minutes blew me away. Now, in the first couple of minutes of it, there was a problem with, his producer didn't bring up something on the screen that he asked for. So there's that little glitch, which you're going to see. But other than that, just pay attention to what he's saying. Listen to what he's saying and listen to those that he's talking to. Because this was the clearest picture painting, let's say, of where we're at right now with these two parties, Democrats and Republicans. In fact, I wish that every Democrat and every liberal would have to watch what I'm going to play for you. It's going to go on for 21 minutes. So I hope that you will stay as soon as I'm finished and watch this. You have many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I'm forever grateful. I thank you very, very much. If anything breaks of major importance to American patriots, I will either do a live show about it or do a video about it. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll be back next Tuesday for another live broadcast. Whether you're watching me tonight live on the YouTube channel or the Rumble channel or the X channel, please like and subscribe and share this show, share the channels with your family and friends, put it out on your social media platforms. Help us spread the word to put it out there. And also check every now and then to make sure you're still subscribed, especially if it's on YouTube that you watch us. I got a great problem with unsubscribing people. And then they say, oh, people just unsubscribe all the time, Doug. Well, my wife doesn't. My kids don't. My parents don't. But yet they're being unsubscribed. It ain't them doing it. So that happens. All right. Be safe this weekend. Watch out for yourself. There's still horrible people in this country, terrorists, that got through those open borders in the Biden-Harris administration. We know that from the Department of Justice and FBI under Biden-Harris that testified in front of Congress, as well as our current one, that they're trying to track them down and find them before they kill Americans. So not only do we have this terrorist threat, but we also have these radical leftists that are getting their marching orders from the current Democrat leadership up in Washington, D.C. So we're fighting a battle on many fronts right now here in America. And we need to turn more and more to the man upstairs. That's where we've gone astray, I believe, in many aspects. You have any place you can be tonight? Chose to be here. Thank you very much. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, their families, our angel families, our blue and gold star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless each and every one of you. And have a wonderful evening. And I'll see you back here next week on Tuesday. Good night, everyone.
For America, this is serious. The dehumanizing, demonizing, overblown, hyperbolic, never-ending, obsessive-compulsive, 24/7 deranged condemnation of President Trump, his administration, ICE, and law enforcement agents, conservatives in general, needs to stop. Needs to stop now. Look at where we are at this moment as a country. Oh, apparently it's not there. All right, 2 weeks, but we'll show you something in a minute. Now, 2 weeks removed from the assassination of Charlie Kirk, America woke up to yet another act of targeted political violence. A 29-year-old man opened fire at an ICE facility in Dallas this morning in what the Department of Homeland Security is now calling an attack on ICE law enforcement. The FBI Director, Kash Patel, shared images on social media of literally unspent ammunition with the words anti-ICE written on it. And as of now, this seems very deliberate. Luckily, no ICE agents were killed or injured in the attack. Sadly, one ICE detainee was killed. 2 others were seriously wounded. And remember, this all comes amid a massive spike in threats against ICE agents. Pay close attention.
You know, I've never seen anything like this in my law enforcement career. I've never seen threats on law enforcement, specifically ICE, increase the way it is. You know, we're up over 1,000% assaults on officers right now. And really just a lot of the talk that's out there, a lot of the rhetoric is just the violence directed towards law enforcement officers just trying to do their job. And it would just keeping seeing an increase step by step.
This is old, painful, it is sad, it is tragic. It's also preventable. We are now officially trapped in a sick, twisted, evil assassination culture. But how do we get here? Now, first, to be clear, unlike the left, they would openly blame conservatives if some lunatic, were to shoot a conservative. They tried to say, blame Bernie Sanders. I said, no, I don't blame Bernie Sanders for what happened on that ball field way back in the day. On this show, we will be specific. You can never blame anyone but the person that actually pulls the trigger for any act of political violence or any other type of violence. Now, but we can no longer deny that the insane, never-ending, dehumanizing rhetoric from the left is so out of control, as President Trump himself wrote on Truth Social earlier today. Radical left Democrats, they are now constantly demonizing law enforcement, calling for ICE to be demolished, comparing ICE officers to Nazis. You can add calling them Gestapo and brown shirts, and we'll show you that in a minute, and worse. Now, Trump, in the same message, called on Democrats to stop this unhinged rhetoric against ICE and law enforcement right away. And he's right. It needs to stop. This is what we hear. Racist, fascist, Nazi, Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini. Never stops. It's every day. It needs to stop. This is what it sounds like.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets.
As somebody who understands history, when I see ICE, I see slave patrols.
The dangers that we saw in Nazi Germany are the dangers that we need to react to now.
And these ICE agents running around our communities like masked bank robbers, terrorizing women.
Masked ICE agents, no badge, no identification, grabbing people off the streets.
Masked secret ICE agents are snatching and arresting immigrants.
Women who are selling fruit on a corner are people who are trying to survive day to day as day laborers. Are car washes. People are beginning to complain now because car washes aren't open. Why would you prey on a car wash? Unless you preying on that car wash because you know those are very vulnerable workers.
And another $30 billion to hire and train ICE agents who have functionally become a secret federal police force with expanding domains.
Are coming and kidnapping and disappearing people on the streets of the United States.
We have ICE federal agents pulling up, terrorizing our communities, hopping out of unmarked vans, stealing and, yes, kidnapping people.
An authoritarian government in Washington, D.C. is dispatching masked agents to abduct immigrants from our streets. That is not justice. It is cruelty. And it is criminal.
$175 billion in the bill that was just signed to reinforce the ranks of ICE, Homeland Security, for what is increasingly becoming self-evident to anyone with eyes wide open and any level of objectivity, a private army for Donald Trump.
Private army? We'll respond to Gavin in a minute. Now, Secretary Nome, she has to now live in military housing for her safety. Our border czar, Tom Homan, he has a full-time security detail because of the rhetoric of radical Democrats around the country. He says he doesn't live with his family because he doesn't want them to face the same threats that he is facing. He took a public service job. He is enforcing the law. ICE agents are enforcing the law. And now, in the case of Tom Homan, it's costing him access to his own family. It's not a joke. Shots have been fired. People have been killed. It's not the 1930s. We don't live in Nazi Germany. This is not fascism. This is not Stalin. This is not an authoritarian country with a dictator in charge. This is the United States of America. Our country can be and should be and hopefully will be better than this. Our elected officials should be better. The legacy media mob is just as bad, and they have been complicit, and they use the same rhetoric, the same language. These talking heads on the left, radical Democrats, get a grip on reality. You know, the daily refrain, as I said, racist, Nazi, fascist, Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini, wash, rinse, repeat. You know, you do it every day, it's having an effect. Cumulatively, if you look at what's happening here, is when deranged people hear this day in and day out, hour in, hour out, every second, every minute, every hour of every day, that this garbage in and out, and Republicans are horrible people, and you can't trust the police, you can't trust ICE, you can't trust conservatives, they're all Nazis, fascists, Gestapo, brown shirts. People who are not well to begin with, they are hearing every word you are saying. It is having a dehumanizing impact and effect. And is it really that far-fetched to ask if people on the edge already, at this point, actually might start to believe that they're doing good by getting rid of Nazis with acts of violence, and maybe even believing, oh, I'm helping God's will on earth, because they have been indoctrinated to believe the people they target are actual Nazis because they hear it every day, a refrain that they're hearing from supposedly respected public figures. Here now with more is Trump border czar Tom Homan. I won't give the details. I did run into you accidentally once at a restaurant. And when I started there's my buddy Tom. I started to walk over and an army stood up. And I asked you, I said, is it that bad? And you said it was, and now you've gone public with how bad it is. Tell us.
Yeah, it's like it's a death threats level I've never seen before. It started, right after the RNC. You were there. I gave a speech at the RNC. The death threat started the day after, and I talked about the terrorist organizations having to be wiped off the face of the earth. Then once President Trump got back in office, I said in March, Sean, back in March, I said if this hateful rhetoric doesn't stop, there's going to be bloodshed. Someone's going to die. I've seen this movie before. I've been doing this for 41 years. It's never been this bad. And, of course, the left said I was crazy. But there's already been 3 shootings just in Texas. There's a shooting at a CBP facility trying to kill a Border Patrol agent. He picked the wrong facility. That was a SWAT training facility, and they killed him. Then there was another thing just south of Dallas where they attacked an ICE facility, and an officer got shot in the neck. Now we have another assassination, and where, an alien died. And it's just, And I'm telling you, I'll say it again, unless the rhetoric stops, it's not over. And it's scary. I'm afraid for the men and women of ICE every night. Every night I go to bed and I pray for the men and women of board on ICE that they go home safe to their families. They're American patriots. They're enforcing the law. And I've never seen anything like this in my entire career, and that's 41 years.
You know, what's so ironic about this is what are they actually trying to accomplish here? For 4 years, they told us the border's closed. They flat out lied to us. For 4 years, they said it was secure. Mayorkas said it, Harris said it, Biden said it, they all said it. Democrats said it. Media were complicit. They didn't cover the story, except probably Fox News and maybe a few others. I don't know who. And meanwhile, we have anywhere between, 12 and 20 million unvetted illegals, among them known terrorists. And correct me if I'm wrong when I tell my audience that. Known terrorists are in the country. We know there are murderers that wouldn't stand for the family of Lake and Riley at the joint session speech in Congress. The Democrats wouldn't stand. They wouldn't stand for Jocelyn Nungary's family, a 12-year-old girl brutally raped and murdered. You know, but we have murderers, rapists, other violent criminals, cartel members, gang members, and drug dealers. Am I summing that up pretty well?
Absolutely. What people need to understand, every morning I look at 22 pages of data for the last 24 hours. Approximately 70%, 70, of everybody ICE arrested is a criminal. Who is the other 30%? Many are known suspected terrorists or national security threats. They don't have a criminal history because they're laying low to do the dirty deed. Many are final orders. People had due process, been ordered removed by a judge, became a fugitive. ICE isn't out there separating families, and you know, I want people to know ICE officers are their fathers and mothers and sons and daughters. They don't hang their heart on a hook every day they go to work. They're enforcing the law, and they're making the community safer. I just gave you the real data. They're making the community safer every day, and they're under deep threat. You know, you mentioned I do have a security detail. I feel bad because every ICE agent don't have a security detail, and they're actually out doing this job. You're right, I don't live with my family just because of this threat. But my family understands they don't want me to stop doing this. And I'll tell you something else. The ICE agents are going to continue doing what they're doing, make this country safe again, because President Trump made that promise to American people. They're going to keep doing the job. We're not going to change a thing because we're going to keep doing what the American people voted Donald Trump in office for. ICE are heroes. They're patriots. They're making the streets safe every day. Every congressman and governor out there badmouthing ICE ought to be thanking President Trump for making their community safer. They've removed hundreds of criminals from the street. I looked at the numbers, over 200,000 arrests, 70% that, do the math, over 140 known criminals, and that's not counting the terrorists and not security threats. ICE is doing a great job.
You know, ironically, the summer of 2020, a couple dozen dead Americans, thousands of injured cops. We had billions in property damage, but they said mostly peaceful, summer of love. And Kamala Harris, they're not going to stop rioting. They shouldn't stop rioting. And we're not going to stop supporting them. Unbelievable times we live in. Please stay safe. And yeah, we pray for your agents as well. Tom Homan, thank you. Now, earlier we did show you some examples of the left demonizing ICE, almost every prominent Democrat in the country. But last night, another fresh example was added to the list from, well, part-time governor, full-time podcaster, full-time Tweety bird, our old friend Gavin Newsom. Take a look.
That's happening in the United States of America. Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process, no oversight, zero accountability, happening in the United States of America today. People ask, well, is authoritarianism, you're being hyperbolic? Bull, we're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here in this country.
Oh, maybe that's why California is a sanctuary state and has so many sanctuary cities and so many benefits for illegals. Newsom today, in the wake of the attack on the ICE facility in Dallas, he told FoxNews.com that he condemns political violence and attacks on law enforcement. This is the same Gavin Newsom who on Saturday signed a bill into law banning ICE agents from wearing masks in California. Oh, maybe those guys would be identified. Maybe that's a version, I don't know, maybe, of doxing. And by the way, that would be blatantly unconstitutional, Gavin. No state government has that kind of power over ICE agents. Read it. It's called the Supremacy Clause. Federal agents are not in your control. And by the way, the jurisdiction's with the federal government. Glad I can help educate you. Also worth noting, according to Politico, the California Highway Patrol, according to this bill signed on Saturday, they're exempt from this mask ban. And guess who guards the governor at all times? Apparently, it's California Highway Patrol. Now, don't forget, ahead of the signing of that bill, Newsom's press office put a post on X saying that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was about to have a bad day. What did that mean? Well, we asked Secretary Noem on Monday about that post. Here's what she said.
Well, it was cryptic, and it was really menacing. I would say, Sean, it immediately panicked my family and friends within, I would say, a couple of minutes of that being posted. When you get a post like that by a governor, immediately, you know, my staff and family think, what is going on? What does he mean? And we're trying to figure it out. So, you know, this is a day and age where we've always known that words matter, but there's been real consequences that we have realized that have happened to incredible people like Charlie that we'll have to live with forever.
Apparently, Gavin Newsom doesn't like our very honest critique of him. He's going after me while talking to the very low-rated, not very funny Stephen Colbert. Take a look.
I never imagined it would break through like it has and get under the skin of the President of the United States and some of my friends.
Some of your friends? Who are these friends?
My friends.
Who are these friends?
And some of my friends on you know, Pravda, Fox. It was Hannity, all these guys, outraged, offended, disgusted, because we put a mirror up to Trump and the absurdity of what's going on in this country.
No, it's not real. It's not authentic. You're not Trump. So tonight, here is my message to the part-time governor, full-time Tweety Bird, full-time podcaster who pretends to run the state of California. Gavin, we were old friends. Maybe it's time to stop tweeting, stop podcasting, start governing your state. You can attack me all you want, and I will gladly respond. Gavin, California's in serious trouble. People are leaving your state in droves because of failed government policies. You have the highest income tax in the country, highest sales tax, highest gas tax. Massive deficits in spite of all the taxes. Rampant, out of control homelessness. You've had, what? How is it possible California and Los Angeles had empty fire hydrants and an empty reservoir, according to reports? In Los Angeles, during what are predictable wildfire seasons and predictable Santa Ana winds. And why haven't the people, the owners of those homes, why aren't they getting the permits so they can start rebuilding? They want to rebuild their lives, Gavin. Why don't you worry about them? I'm not that important. Plus, out of control crime across your state. You know what? Your state sanctuary policies, all it's doing is aiding and abetting and rewarding those that did not respect our nation's laws and borders and sovereignty by providing taxpayer-funded benefits. No wonder you can't balance your budget out there, even with those sky-high taxes, and you don't even keep stats on crimes committed by illegals in your state of California. Why is that? You know, your time as governor is running short. You know, you got a little over a year left in office. Maybe focus on actually bringing the people of California and the country together, make the world a better place, and then if you want to run for president, good luck. You can run on your record. Good luck with that, too, and on your tweets. Anyway, free advice that you won't listen to. Here with more, California Republican gubernatorial candidate Steve Hilton. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, in all honesty, I did at one point have a good relationship with Gavin, then it gets hostile. And we actually had a really good exchange over Charlie Kirk. I can disclose that part. And then this happens, you know, on Saturday. What is going on out there?
Well, I just don't know, Sean. He's turned into this ridiculous fool, this puffed up buffoon of a governor now with these pathetic, juvenile posts on X trolling the president, his increasingly bizarre hand gestures all the time. Meanwhile, as you say, nothing is being done to solve the problems that they created. I could add to your list of everything going wrong in California. Right now in California, we have the highest unemployment rate in America. We have the highest poverty rate in America, the highest costs for everything that matters. Electricity, gas, housing, rent, everything is a disaster. We got the worst business climate, all because of their far-left ideological crusades, including on climate, that's making everything so expensive. What's he doing about any of that? Absolutely nothing. And in many ways, you could say is probably just as well that he's not doing his job as governor, because when he is doing his job, he just makes everything worse. Look, we need a change in California. That's why I'm running for governor on all those issues. We've got to focus on making life better for working class Californians, for small businesses. I used to be a small business owner. They're being crushed by these policies. And when you talk about crime and the border and the sanctuary state policies, we need a governor that is going to enforce the law and work with the president and the administration to enforce the law as well and turn things around. We can't let California continue to slide into decay and decline like this.
Is there a number, how many billions of dollars are spent on services? And that would be Medi-Cal, I believe you call it, your state medical care, yes. And schools and law enforcement, et cetera. Any numbers, any estimates about how much the state is spending on illegal immigrants based on the sanctuary state policy that they have?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly identify the number on healthcare, because that was a new program that Gavin Newsom bragged about adding. And then also he lied about it. He said that he was restricting it in response to the outcry. But in this year's budget, the spending has gone up from just over $9 billion to over $12 billion just on the healthcare part. And you look at the way I'm across the state the whole time. Schools are being completely overwhelmed. Students there who don't speak English, disrupting education for everyone else. Our housing crisis. You've got so many people here overcrowding. They won't build homes because of their ridiculous environmental regulations, and they won't admit the problem. Their ideology gets in the way. We need practical, common sense policies in California, just as President Trump has shown the effectiveness of that at the national level. And here in California, we can have that too. We just need to vote for change next year.
You know, the interesting part to me is I actually think he was on the right track talking to people like Bannon and Charlie Kirk.
Exactly.
And having a conversation about disagreements. And, you know, when he spoke to me, that Gavin seems to be gone. And it's like invasion of the body snatchers. I guess he wants to be president. He was not gaining traction among the radical base in his party. So now he's going to be the most anti-Trump, the most vitriolic. Maybe it helps him politically get the nomination. I don't think that's going to resonate. I don't think America wants to be California at the end of the day. Last word.
But it's also hurting the country, Sean, because as well as all this trolling, there's really dangerous rhetoric coming out of Gavin Newsom. Just days ago, he put out a video saying that we need to, quote, punch our opponents in the mouth. That is reckless and irresponsible. He's got to stop pandering and do his job.